Welcome to this workshop, the new Gravity Forms experience. My name is Chris Norcross, and I will be talking about the new features that have been added to version 2.5 of Gravity Forms. And this workshop is meant for existing users of Gravity Forms who need to learn what the changes are. If you're a brand new user to Gravity Forms or WordPress in general, you may find that some of the other workshops being offered are a better fit for you. So first off, the new features, we're going to talk about improved accessibility. Accessibility is something that's important to the college for ethical reasons, legal reasons, just good business reasons really. So we're going to talk about how they've improved accessibility of Gravity Forms. There's also a new form editor, and the new form editor is going to be the most apparent change for existing users. The way you build forms is now very different. Most of the options and settings are still there that you are used to, but the way you build it, the way the interface works is very different. There's also drag and drop columns now. It used to be much more difficult to add columns to your layout of forms. It's now pretty easy to do that. And then last, we're going to be talking about the improved markup and styles. And that's something that is great because any new forms you build will use this improved markup and styles. However, there is something you're going to need to do for your existing forms if you want them to take advantage of that new markup and styles. Alright, so we'll start out with web accessibility improvements. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that you'll never be aware of that's been improved. And what I mean by that is the actual HTML code and in some cases JavaScript code that's working in the background for the forms and the form builder for that matter. That's been made more accessible now with the new version of Gravity Forms 2.5. So those ones you won't be able to see the changes directly, but you can just know that those changes have been made and that they're making an effort to do that. But there are some changes in the interface here for building forms that I think are very helpful as far as enabling us at Palomar College to build accessible forms. And I just want to point out a couple of the features as examples, and there's probably more that I'm not mentioning. But let's start with a simple form field, and you guys are getting a little preview now of the new form editor. I'll get to that in a minute and show them in more detail. But right now I'm on an existing form with one form field and in the new version, so I've got the new editor. One of the things I can do is click on an existing field, and that will give me the option to manage the field settings. And there's a couple of places where you'll actually be warned or about accessibility issues, or there'll be information about how you can improve accessibility of your form here in the settings. So one of the ones I want to point out is in the advanced section. There is an option to enable autocomplete. And you'll notice that there's this little help icon next to it. And one of the things it tells you here is that is basically it gives you information about what autocomplete is. It's meant to help a user fill out a field with information that their computer knows already and can predict or can provide. And it gives you a link here to additional accessibility documentation as well. So that's one way that they've improved the ability to make accessible forms by adding some information like this. So it tells you how to do it. So if I enable that, it pre-fills it in for me, and as is, it's probably perfectly fine. But if you have a reason to make changes, you certainly can. And if you want more information about how accessibility works in Gravity Forms, you can certainly use that link there. So that's one way. Another method that they use to help you build accessible forms that I'm a really big fan of is in some cases when you try to do something that's just a problem with accessibility. For example, if you don't put a field label, if I don't label this name, how is somebody going to know what it is? So I'll delete the label and then go on to another field, and immediately it gives me this warning here, telling me that it violates the WCAG, that's the Web Consortium Advisory Group. I'm sorry, Web Consortium Accessibility Group, and it tells me I need to use a descriptive text for the label. I cannot just leave that blank. And then there's a link to learn more. So another helpful way that Gravity Forms helps with web accessibility. Okay, let's talk about the new form editor. So I'm in the demo site. Right now I'm just looking at the all forms list. I'm going to go ahead and create a new form by clicking the Add New button. And this is all the same. There's some slight style differences in the way things look, but it's the same really. Okay, so this is the new form editor. We saw a little preview of it when we were talking about the accessibility topic earlier. And there's a lot of great changes here. So first off, you'll see that you still have the options on the right hand side to add your fields. What we'll find is they've also added the field settings on the right hand side though. That's like the major change. So to start off with, let's say I'm making a very simple contact form. Anybody who's been using Gravity Forms knows that these advanced fields are here. So I'll create a name field. And now that I've got that, I can click on it, and then the field settings come up over here on the right hand side. So that's a big change, but it's pretty straightforward. There's a general section, there's an appearance section, an advanced section, and there's also a conditional logic section if that's relevant. So in this case, I can choose to say make it required. I can add a description if I wanted to. Under the appearance tab, all the normal stuff we see, the placeholders, visibility, placements of the description and sublabels. So all that's there. And then the advanced area is the normal stuff again, with the addition of some of the new stuff like the enable autocomplete. Okay, so that's name field. Let's go ahead and add another field. So we'll go back to the Add Fields tab over here. And now let's say this time I want to ask for an email address. So I can take the email, I can just click on it, or I can click and drag it and put it where I want it to be in the form. So that's kind of nice. So let's put it right there. And if I click on it, again, it brings me up to the settings. So it's really a straightforward change. I think it's actually more user-friendly now. It might take a little bit of getting used to. I know that it surprises me when I have to look over here on the right-hand side to look for the field settings because I'm so used to them being integrated with the form field itself. One nice thing about this new setup is that when you make changes to the settings over here, you see them immediately in the form preview over here. So that's kind of a cool feature. Didn't used to update quite that easily before. Alright, so as you can see, the form editor is pretty straightforward. Mostly it's just changing the way it kind of the look and feel of it, but the options and settings are there. Alright, so one additional new feature of the form editor, and one that I specifically am speaking about as its own separate topic, is the ability to do column layouts now very easily using drag and drop. The whole interface, the drag and drop method now works a lot better than it used to. Not only can I take a field and move it up or down in the list, so I can move email to the top, I can take name, move it back up to the top, but now you can actually do columns very easily. And if anybody's done columns in the past, what you had to do is you had to go into the settings, and there was a special CSS class that you would add, and you had to add it to all the fields that you wanted to be in that column. And if you did it incorrectly, of course, it wouldn't work. It was complicated. In my opinion, overly complicated. But now it's really easy. I can take a field, and I can drag it next to another field and drop it. Now, it can create up to 4 column layouts. Currently I only have 2 fields. If I want to, I can actually resize it, but you're going to have a maximum of 4 fields in a layout. So that's kind of a neat feature. And if you decide you don't want it in columns after all, you can drag it out. So it's very flexible. It'll allow you to make really easy layouts. So now if I were to go in and add another field, I'm just going to add, I don't know, say radio buttons. So this field here, I could add it to that same layout if I wanted to. So That's a new feature that's built in this new editor that I think will be really handy for anybody building a form. You may even have some existing forms you want to go in and change the layout for. And so we'll be talking about that next, how you can convert your old forms into this new format so that you can use all the great features. The new and improved markup and styles that's been added to Gravity Forms 2.5 is something that you again won't really see obviously in many cases. It's happening behind the scenes in the code, just as the accessibility changes are happening. In fact, some of the accessibility changes are actually simply changes to the markup and styles. So there's a lot of overlap, but there are some important considerations when considering your older forms, and that's why I wanted to make sure I make this a topic in this workshop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with an existing form I have here specifically for this purpose. It's a demo form. I called it Legacy Markup Example, and the reason is because this is a form that is using what they call legacy markup. So this form was created using the old method in Gravity Forms, the old builder that has the old styles. Now I can preview it here in the new editor, fine. I can hit preview here to give me a preview. I can see I even have some column, a row set up with 4 columns. And that's something that was done using the old method that I mentioned earlier, where you had to actually add what was called a CSS ready class to these fields in order to make them show up in columns like that. And I demonstrated how easy it is now to turn a form into a more advanced layout with columns. This form, though, however, was created using the old method, and I'm going to demonstrate how to convert it to the new format. So if I were to use it as is, it wouldn't take advantage of some of those new changes in Gravity Forms, including some of those accessibility changes and also the just the standard markup and styles changes that they've made to make it to better, just to make the forms present themselves better in the browser. Some of those markup changes have been added. So if you want to convert an existing form into the new settings, the new styles, then you can go up to the settings area and you can go to form settings and scroll down towards the bottom, and there is an option here, the last option currently in the list, enable legacy markup. So any old forms are going to have this enabled automatically. So if you have this view where it's the kind of that greenish color with the check mark, I don't know what, blue-green, with a check mark here, that means it's currently on and it's using legacy markup. So if you want to use the new markup, you need to turn it off here and then save those settings. And then you need to make sure that after you've turned it off, and you see this now it's off here with this X and the gray, when you go back to the form, you need to make sure that you pay attention to any notices that it's giving you. So this form here I mentioned was had columns using the old method that they called CSS ready classes. But now you don't need to do that. You can drag and drop. So this form needs to have those columns converted to the correct format. So I'm going to go ahead and go through that process in this form just to demonstrate it. It's not something that you would necessarily have done in your forms, but you may see other messages up here that are similar that tell you things that you're using that are deprecated or are no longer necessary to do in that way. Or possibly could be even causing problems for accessibility. So in this case, I happen to know that the fields that are in columns are down towards the bottom. It's these 4 here. They're a single row when you preview it. Here we go. So I'm going to fix that right now and use the new method. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on each of these fields one at a time, go to the appearance area, and in my case I need to remove this custom CSS class. That told it to be the first item in the row. And then I need to go through the next 3 items and do the same exact thing. So again, this is how I need to fix this particular form, where the problem is that it's using these CSS classes. It even tells you here, again, it's not necessary. You learn more by clicking the link. So it's very helpful in telling you how to fix that problem. There may be other issues that your forms run into. Hopefully it'll give you enough information to fix it. If you need help, you can always contact us in Academic Technology and we can give you a hand with that. But now that I've made those changes, I'm now going to update my form, and we see that that message is no longer there. So I've now essentially converted this form to the new markup and layout and styles. So now I'm going to preview the form and show that it is now in a single column rather than a single row of 4 columns. And as I demonstrated before, if you want to make that into a column-based layout, you're going to just click and drag your items into the correct row. And then I can save and preview. All right, and that's pretty much it as far as the markup and style changes go. Okay, to wrap up this workshop, the important takeaways are Gravity Forms 2.5 is now live on Palomar sites. So if you've been using the Gravity Forms plugin on your site, you have these new features available to you. Converting your legacy forms is strongly encouraged. So definitely something to take a look at. Most forms will convert really easily with no problems. And if you do run into issues, you can always contact us in ATRC, and we will be happy to help you.